Our first vet is Rich, who spent his combat duty as a warrant officer in Cambodia. He was released in April of 1975 and has been undergoing therapy for his intense war-related emotional issues since 1978. These issues include over 100 intrusive memories and a severe height phobia. He has insomnia because of this and gets only 4 hours of sleep per night. Little or no headway has been made, but he keeps trying. This videotape segment starts on our second session with Rich.
You're a Vietnam veteran.
Right.
Okay, and you're here at a Veterans Administration facility as a round-the-clock inpatient for PTSD.
Right.
Post-traumatic stress disorder, with a number of Vietnam experiences. Height phobias and a bunch of stuff that's related to all of that. And we talked yesterday for an hour or two.
Sure.
Was it yesterday or the day before?
Well, the day before we talked for 2 hours, but we talked yesterday for a few minutes.
Yeah, but as far as sitting in that chair and you and I talking, it was
A couple days ago.
Right. And we seem to have taken care of a height phobia, I guess.
I've tried it at least a dozen times, and it's worked.
Yeah.
Which was
that's a dozen times.
Very skeptical, but it actually worked. So I believe that it works. Part of the problem with PTSD is a trust factor. So it's not just the height that I had to come over; it's trusting yourself and Adrian, or anyone. So by doing the procedure, and then that night I went back. Before I went out there, I didn't even test it. I went through the procedure again to make sure, because I didn't want to go out there. But since then, I've gone out there quite a few times, and it's
without doing the procedure.
Without doing the procedure at all.
Rich, could we go over the height phobia, how intense it was for the camera? I know that you needed to jump out of.
Well, I have in the service I have over 50 parachute jumps. And I was scared of heights then, but it became worse. I don't know if it was the fear of always having to jump, because it would take a 4-hour event, getting your chute ready, going down to the green ramp, sitting there, and all that played in your mind.
Sure.
So when I would, I noticed, it seemed like the older I got, the more fear I had, especially going up elevators. If I went to the mall and looked over the second floor, I'd feel like I'm falling. Maybe it's not fear of heights as much as it's fear of always falling when I'm looking.
Nonetheless, it's the fear when you're up high.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
And that it's been with me. We have a fire escape here, which I'm okay if I go down the inside where I can't see over the railing, and I have to look straight ahead. If I look down, then it was very difficult to do. And since I did this procedure, it's very easy for me to do it.
Okay.
Without any emotional pain or anxiety.
We turn now to that first session with Rich where we eliminate his height phobia. In this session, Rich, on a 10-point intensity scale, goes to an 8 or 9 just thinking about going out on that fire escape. In fact, the mere thought of it makes the hair stand up on his legs. After using the tapping technique for only 5 minutes, Rich no longer has any fear in the stage when he just thinks about it.
Now it's moving closer. It's closer to the 1. Closer to the 1. In fact, I could probably look over it right now.
So now the ultimate test. Will it hold up in the real situation?
Well, I've never been able to do this.
Now, right now, are you a 1, a 2, a 5? What are you?
I'm about a 0.
About a 0. Okay, now
I don't know what a 0 is because I've never been there before, but I've never been able to lean over the railing.
And how many floors up are we? 3?
3 floors. Plus, I don't feel the anxiety that I'm going to fall.
There's your friend? Yeah. Well, why don't you put the camera down on the friend? You want to wave? Have you ever seen him do this before? No.
I'm healed. Thank you, Jesus. Thank you.
What a hell. Mental health professionals and phobia sufferers should find this result stunning. Conventional methods for phobias usually take months or years to give any relief, and even then, the relief is only partial. Just in case you are wondering about how long this result lasts, we are happy to report that the relief is usually permanent. We've helped eliminate hundreds of phobias with this technique, and typically, they never come back. Now let's return to the second session with Rich and delve into those intrusive memories that caused him so much pain. Note how rapidly EFT reduces their impact to zero.
Test a thing or two. I mean, we, among other things, 2 days ago, we went through the intrusive memories that make up your PTSD. All of, not all of, we didn't go through all of your, we went through, I think, three or four of your most intense, intensely difficult memories, the one that when they come back, they really get to you, okay? And we were able 2 days ago to have you go through that and talk about it rather calmly. Whereas normally it got up on a scale of 0 to 10, like an 8 or a 10 or something?
Sure, there's days it got to a 10. The day I was in here, a couple of them got to 10, a couple of them I think got to 7.
Okay. But then you were able to discuss them at a level of 0, if I recall.
Right. It was a 0.
Would you mind taking the most intense of those 3 and telling the story again and then letting us know as you tell it? This is a way of testing, by the way, because anything left, we want to make sure we get a hold of it. But let's just see what your intensity is now as you discuss it. Would you mind doing that?
Sure. Probably of the 3, the toughest issue was coming to a village and seeing so many bodies. Actually, my experience was in Cambodia, not Vietnam. And the Khmer Rouge, there was a couple Khmer Rouge groups, and they were overthrowing the Cambodian government. And April '75, they succeeded in doing that, and they went to different villages and basically annihilated the people in the village. They would destroy the entire village.
How does it feel when you say that on a scale of 0 to 10?
Well, actually, I'm a 0.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm a 0, and we would go to the village. You could hear the people screaming at nighttime, and when you would go in the village, one incident which I had relayed to you and Adrian was that there was so many, about 20 dead bodies, and they were all decapitated.
And how do you feel now when you talk about those 20 decapitated bodies?
I'm at a 0.
Okay, now I remember rather clearly the other day you were up around a 7 or an 8.
Well, probably when I said the bodies, and that part stays in my mind, I'm sure I was at a 10, because even though I was able to talk about it over the years, because I've been in therapy since '78, it still was very intense.
Okay. But it's not intense now when you speak about it?
No.
Okay, I would like to get a little more detailed on that. I'd like to get below the surface of just saying there were 20 decapitated bodies to see what your intensity is. And if it becomes uncomfortable, by the way, I want to know that right away, okay? But can you describe in more detail any one of them?
Sure. Well, actually, they wore black uniforms, and their heads were dismembered from their body, and the heads were...
You mean like here was a body laying here and there was a head right next to it or something? And
within 6 feet of them. There was just a pile of heads and a pile of bodies.
Were there expressions on the faces?
Well, what I can only remember is just a blank, because obviously I didn't stare too long.
As you speak about this now in more detail, are you still a 0 or are you getting up to something?
I think I'm a 0.
You think you're a 0?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because I wouldn't have told you the fact where the heads were, or the fact that the blood was all over the place, and they were thin, their bodies had swollen from the heat. It was the stench. It used to be I could smell the stench, and now that I'm talking about it, I can't smell the stench.
Oh, you can't smell the stench now? Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, you told me when we first started talking about any of these things that you could see, hear, smell, taste. Did you not say that to me?
Sure. When an event, an intrusive thought, or what I call a negative thought, or a memory of my Cambodian experience, sure, I could smell the gunfire. I could smell the green woods. There's a smell of blood you can smell.
Can you smell that now as you talk about it?
No.
Okay. Yeah, I'll tell you what's interesting about that. I'm going to tell you what some other vets have told me that have dealt with PTSD in this process. I don't say this to put words in your mouth. I say this to ask you if you think this would be accurate. Okay? And they will tell me that while they do not forget the memory is still there. They can still recount it as well as they ever could. You know, the emotion gets neutralized. And one fellow said it's like talking about a shopping trip. Now, is that accurate as far as you're concerned?
Last night, actually, I tried to think of a couple of the intrusive thoughts that I had told you, and it was very, numbing's not the word, I was very calm. It was just as if it didn't want to enter my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not even sure that the fact that the memory was still there, it was a vague memory. It wasn't something that I even wanted to, because normally when I go to bed, I sit there and it takes 3-4 hours for me to go to bed, even on quite strong medication. And although it was hard for me to get to sleep, it wasn't the thoughts, the negative thoughts in the past that were there. And probably I tried to get them there because they've been with me so long, and I couldn't get them there.
Okay. Now the odds are really high, Rich, that those thoughts you worked on just simply aren't going to be part of your intrusive thoughts anymore. Now if they come back, what that really means is that there is some piece of all that we haven't addressed in your thought process while we're doing the tapping, and something else comes up some other day and you get some intensity about it. You just need to tap again. But chances are, for those intrusive thoughts, it's pretty much behind you. That's our experience anyway.
I hope so.
Well, that's our experience with 80 or 90% of the people. That's probably conservative once we've gotten it down. Okay?
Well, when I came in the door, I would figure if you could just give me 5% relief, it would be worth it.
Yeah.
And it's a lot higher than I thought possible.
Yeah. Well, let me tell you something else, because I want to go through another thing or two with you while I have you. The other thing that we find is quite often when we take care of, well, let's put it this way. Let me ask you a question. How many, just estimate for me, how many intrusive thoughts do you think you have? How many scenes, how many events that happened in the Vietnam area do you think are contributing to your PTSD?
Well, actually, I think from day one right on through, because every day was a different event, and even if just being there and being around war. Although they're not in levels of 10, but I'm sure they're levels of 2 or 3. But there's quite a few of them at level 10. There's probably, 100.
Oh, 100?
I couldn't even count.
How many intrusive thoughts? Well, we dealt with 3 the other day.
Right.
Since then, how many intrusive thoughts have you dealt with on your own?
Yes, last night I dealt with 3 of them.
3 of them.
One was the firefight that I had just mentioned to Adrian, and the other 2 were probably in between a low thought like that and a high thought of seeing a village being slaughtered.
Okay, so that's 3 we dealt with before, and then 3 you did on your own, so that's 6 altogether. And you've gotten those down to a point where they seem to be behind you?
I would say emotionally they're behind me. In fact, the first 3, it was very difficult for me even to get to think about last night, because I was trying to think about it, because I hadn't been able to sleep for so many years, so I know this is just a routine I have to go through. I mean, I know I'm going to have to lie in the bed. I know I'm going to have to think about all these intrusive thoughts. And even though I couldn't get to sleep, it wasn't the intrusive thoughts that were stopping me. I think it was maybe the frustration that I couldn't get those intrusive thoughts back to the level that they normally are. They became part of my family, I guess, and maybe it's kind of hard for me to explain, but
It's kind of a habit, though.
it's exactly what it was. It was a habit, and I couldn't sleep last night, but it wasn't because of the intrusive thoughts. I'm laying there and I'm thinking, well, something's missing. It's kind of, it's like I can't figure it out, but I was not sleeping because I'm trying to figure out why I wasn't the same.
I think that makes sense.
Yeah. So that you know, it is also our experience that if you have, I think I sort of figured this out when you were talking, something like 100 tens.
Oh, you said there's hundreds and hundreds of events.
Okay. But if you have, let's just say a number of 100 tens, Quite often, you don't have to go through each and every one of those to eventually get relief on all of them. You've now done 3 with us, 3 on your own. If you did 1 every day or 2 every day from this point forward, after a while, typically, you only need to take care of 10 or 15, 20 maybe, and it sort of generalizes. You'll have a hard time finding the ones you haven't worked on. So I would like to spend a little more time with you on other ones that you haven't worked on yet. Let's do it right here. You have it now?
Yes.
Okay, and again, is it sort of like a short movie of 2 or 3 minutes, or?
It's only, it's about a minute movie.
Okay, so like we did before, what I'd like to have you do is to start telling us about it, but start before, something before the minute movie, and build into it. The moment you get any intensity whatsoever, like a 2 or a 3 or something like that, I want you to just tell me immediately, and we'll start working with it. This is not a game of how much pain you can have. It's a game of how little pain you're going to have. Okay.
Actually, I was starting before, thinking before I came in here, and it was very difficult for me to get to a 10, even on some of my thoughts that would normally be a 10.
Okay, that's part of the generalization going on.
Right.
But you've got one you can get to a 10?
I can, well,
Or as high as you can.
I could probably get to maybe a 6 or a 7.
And normally it would be a 10?
Yes.
Okay, but let's test it. I'd like to have you start telling the story, something before it began, and then build into it, and whatever intensity you get as you talk about it, you'll let me know.
Okay. While we... Let me think of a couple here. Okay, while we were in Cambodia, while the sun starts coming up, there's a fog that goes across the land, and you have to realize there was so many. They would go and destroy villages after villages. I guess we now believe they slaughtered in excess of 1 million people. A lot of
What's your intensity now when you say that?
Probably only about a 4 or 5.
Okay, but let's stop right there. Let's deal with that one, okay? You don't have to rub the sore spot for sore. Tap right here. Okay? See, I accept myself even though I have this emotion.
I accept myself even though I have this emotion.
Over here, you might just give it a little tougher thump than you gave it. Okay. Okay. All right, tune back into where you were when you were like a 4 or whatever it was. Are you still a 4?
No.
And what had you said? You talked about slaughtering millions of people, I think were the words.
Well, over the length of a few years, we found out that they had killed so many people. In the first...
So are you a 4 now?
0.
0, go ahead.
Initially, when it happened, I know that first week they slaughtered over 50,000 people, and it just seemed like everywhere we went there would be bodies all over the place.
And how does that feel when you remember those bodies?
I'm at a 0.
A 0? Okay, go ahead.
One of the incidents that I can remember was when the sun comes up, there's so much fog, and a lot of the bodies weren't buried, but some bodies were only put, just dirt would be piled on top of them, and it would always rain, and I'm probably going up to about a 4 or 5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there a particular scene you're seeing? It's the bodies?
Right.
Okay. All right. I accept myself.
I accept myself
even though I have this emotion about these bodies.
Even though I have this emotion about these bodies.
Okay, now as you remember those bodies, are you still was it a 4?
Yeah, I'm at a 0.
You're a 0. All right, go ahead.
And what would happen is that it would rain so hard, it would be so hard that you could hardly see in front of you. But in the morning, I can remember a light rain that would get underneath and wash the bodies and would push them right out of the ground. So it looked something like out of when you were a child and you were in a horror film.
How does that feel to say?
I feel all right.
Is it a 0? 1?
0.
It's a 0. Okay. All right. What is it normally? Is that the intense part of the scene?
Seeing the body rise. Yes.
Yeah. That's the intense part.
Right. The rain just gets underneath of it and washes it right out.
And it's a 0 emotionally for you.
Right now it is. Normally it's not.
Okay, normally it's a 10 or something?
That would be a 10 thought.
Okay,
It would stop me from sleeping.
Yeah, and you have nightmares from time to time?
Yes.
How often? I forgot. You told me before, but it slipped my mind.
Well, the thoughts are there every night. I mean, they're there every night.
Okay. And is that scene a part of your nightmares from time to time?
Yes.
Okay. How often do you have the nightmares?
Every night.
Do you have one last night?
No.
Night before?
Yes. No, I haven't had them in the last 2 months. Have to think now for a minute.
Well, okay. Now this is important to recognize, though. If you haven't had a nightmare for the last 2 nights and you're used to having them every night, it was 2 nights ago you started doing the tapping, or 2 days ago. Okay. This scene that we were just doing, we've gotten to the intense part now?
Yes.
Okay. I want you to close your eyes, if you would, and I'd like you to mentally go through that entire scene, stopping at each one of the points where you had some emotional intensity. And I want you to literally try to get yourself intensive. I want you to imagine these things in the most vivid terms that you can. I want you to make an effort to get intense on each of those points and tell me where you get it.
Zero.
On all of them?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. Chances are you're going to be 0 or close to it. I mean, chances are we've taken one more intrusive thought and put it in the bag.
You will be interested to learn that I spoke with Rich 2 months after this session, and his height phobia still had not returned, his intrusive thoughts were all zeros, and his sleep at night expanded from an average of 4 hours per night to about 7. This is typical of these procedures, and the normal expectation is that the problems will not return.